Good morning. My name is Lindberg Ekela, and I'm the Forest Stewardship Planning Coordinator for the Board of Water and Soil Resources. We're here today in northwestern Itasca County on the Dan and Ann Stewart Family Forest. The property is a 40-acre tract near Karkar Lake.
This tour touches on managing a family forest, linking landscape stewardship and landowner goals for a healthy and sustainable working forest.
Hi, I'm Dan Stewart, and I'm the owner with my wife and family of this particular 40-acre tract we're sitting on here this morning in northwestern Itasca County, Sand Lake Township, and mini Karkar Lake. This little lake here is just a little 40-acre lake off to the east side of the property. My dad always called it Moccasin Lake because it is shaped like a moccasin, so I kind of like that old name, Moccasin Lake. We are just into the Big Fork River Watershed. The Continental Divide goes right through here about. So this is all going, this blue line delineates the immediate Sand Lake watershed. This is all going to Hudson's Bay through the Big Fork River. And this stuff over here is going into Big Winnie and down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. Deer hunting is probably the #1 recreational thing we do up here, but it also serves as a great little cabin and base for fishing. The goals on the property are pretty much split between recreation and timber, I would say. To this time, we've been mostly doing, this 40 sat has only had a couple light harvests. It had a jack pine harvest about 15 years ago because the jack pine was dying out. And then about 10 years before that, we had a small aspen harvest, but only like 125 cords or something like that. That was our first timber harvest our family had ever done, was in here. And now you can see that pole, you know, aged popple. But it is, nonetheless, it's very diverse. I mean, red pine, white pine, jack pine, black spruce, white spruce, tamarack, one cedar, birch, red oak, red maple. That's 10. And you know, and balsam. Quite a few of them. So I mean, that's the beauty of this area. I think is it's got a lot of diversity. So there's a lot to work with. It's not just a straight aspen woods or whatever. It's very diverse. And Jason Newberg with Newberg Forest Products did the work. He's out of just a few miles north of Deer River on Highway 6. Did a great job. And I wanted somebody to work on the property who would be very sensitive to our interest in white pine and all the residual pine there. We wanted that to not get beat up in the process. And I think he did a really good job. All the way down to, you know, there's a lot of balsam scattered in here. And I know balsam doesn't get a lot of credit for anything other than Christmas trees, but it's a, I think, really underrated wildlife tree, and especially deer. So there's lots of small balsam still in there, and that's just one measure, I think, of the good job he did. We did cull the woods for dead and damaged and dying red and white pine, and so we wanted to do a little sawmill bandsaw operation on the wood as well. And so I didn't cut one healthy white or red pine. We only took damaged ones.
Alan Lisdahl explains how important balsam fir is for creating conditions for long-lived white pine to grow.
And then afterwards, they kill all the vegetation underneath because they shade everything out. And then since they're not long-lived, then when they die, they fall over, create that gap. It's perfect size for white pine. And then the white pine comes in.
It's pretty neat how the conifers have less snow under them. That's an advantage to deer that might be belly deep in snow everywhere else. There's less wind. Well, that's less energy demanded on their fat reserves that they're trying to make it through the winter on. And what's the third? Oh, it's warmer.
It's warmer.
Yeah, so there's at least three advantages.
If you can have a good thermal cover like that and a nearby food source, the deer can make it through winter very well.
The Private Forest Management Program is designed to help landowners manage their forests.
Hi, my name is Josh Donatel. I'm a forester with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources out of the Grand Rapids office. Just here to speak a little bit about the Minnesota DNR PFM program, Private Forest Management Program. The PFM program provides advice and assistance for private landowners and other organizations in Minnesota so they can actively manage their woods. The main tool for providing this advice and assistance is through our Forest Stewardship Program. The Forest Stewardship Program is funded by the federal government and administered by the Minnesota DNR. The landowner is paired up with an approved plan writer. They will meet up in the woods to talk about the private landowner's objectives. The plan is to be written based off those objectives. The stewardship plan itself provides the landowner with benefits in return as far as tax incentive programs. So we have 2 tax incentive programs in Minnesota, SFIA, Sustainable Forest Incentive Act, and the 2C Managed Forest Law program. Another program available for landowners in Minnesota that the PFM program provides is our cost share program. So the state cost share program provides project money for landowners as well as technical assistance to practice good forest stewardship on their land.
A good logger understands the landowner's goals.
So usually I'll look at talking to the landowner what their objective is, what they want to use it for. Is it for revenue? Is it for recreation? Is it for forest management? You know, so many times it's just people want some money out of their timber. You know, they don't really use it. They use it for revenue. And other times are like Dan, he's got a nice little cabin here. He wants to see the future forest grow and manage it, sustain it.
Harvest sometimes offers some unique opportunities for
Those
wildlife.
piles, you can see them over there.
Oh, yeah.
While we were cutting and we were piling the slash with the delimber, next thing my operator calls on the radio and says, you see that beaver? And I'm looking, and all of a sudden this beaver is a big one. Probably, I don't know, 50 pounds I suppose it weighed.
Yeah.
And here he is grabbing out of this top slash pile, and he's dragging the limbs and tops of the trees back towards the pond. And if anybody knows beaver, they're pretty much nocturnal. You know, they'll come out early morning, late in the evening. This was the middle of the day. He's like, this is a feast. You know, he's taking all he can get.
These
And,
guys are nice enough to pile it for me. You know, I'll take it from here. Thank you.
Dan explains the techniques used during harvest on his land 3 years ago to reach his goal of encouraging more white pine on his land and across the landscape.
Wanted to make sure we did a non-frozen ground or a fall harvest so that we could disturb the mineral soil as much as possible, hoping that that would enhance regeneration of white pine especially. It benefits a number of species, but especially white pine. And so Jason with Newberg Forest Products came in and did the harvest in about 2 weeks. It went very well.
After we did the logging, we come through here and we used my rubber track skid loader with a brush rake grapple on it. And what we were trying to get is to some scarification and knock down some of the aspen and the brush. And we scarified maybe top couple inches maybe. And they're going to plant some pine in here and try to release some of this area, maybe some seeds come up.
Foresters help guide landowners to make their goals a reality.
Important to note that Dan did have assistance from a forester while going through this process as far as selling his stumpage, writing up a contract, and then having the logger show up to do the work. It's always important for a private landowner to have some assistance when it comes to managing their land. Your typical landowner is only going to have this opportunity, you know, maybe once over the course of their life. So I thought that was a big advantage that Dan had going for him throughout this process. And the other thing worth noting is, you know, obviously the aspen came back gangbusters, which you will see in northern Minnesota whenever you're managing aspens. So we're sitting in a clump of aspen regeneration here from Dan's timber sale. You can see it's very thick. You know, I would estimate it's around 10,000 stems per acre. Another thing to note is Dan has been doing bud capping out here. Obviously a major objective for him is to restore white pine out here on the landscape. Very important if you're trying to get white pine to survive over time, that you're taking some sort of measure to protect them from deer browse. In this case, we're just using a 3x5 sheet of paper. We grab a stapler and then really just saving that terminal leader from getting browsed. The most important thing is that you get some needles actually in the staple. I've been working with landowners in the last 2 years or the deer are coming by and actually pulling the bud cap off. The other thing that's worth noting here is, since Dan, his objective is to diversify his forest, get more white pine on the landscape here, is you can tell he's got all sorts of competition issues here with his white pine. So something he's going to be working on is doing some release work. You know, whether we use chemical or mechanical means to do that, the important part is that we're opening up some growing space for the white pine.
Small gaps allow white pine to establish without too much competition from sun-loving plants like aspen and hazel.
When you keep the gap this size, it's small, this is like just a few trees in size. You don't get much sunlight in here, so you're not going to get the aspen region. And like you said, the hazel is going to be weak then.
Yeah.
But you're still going to get your white pine seedlings. There's going to be enough sunlight for that to happen. And this is an easy way to get white pine regen and have white pine restoration without a lot of expense financially.
Yeah, so it takes a seed treat
Yeah.
and then a little sweat equity, but if you need the firewood anyway, you might as well do it where you get maybe a double benefit. And we're just talking about this little microsite right here, and I learn every time I'm in the woods with the forester. I learn stuff, and so that's what landowners want, is they want a good walk through the woods with somebody who, the landowner has opinions. I have plenty of them, but that doesn't mean they're right, you know. And so it's good to check them off, somebody who's technically sound in that area, and they can really help out.
So resources that we need to help landowners better manage their forests is we just need to get the word out to more folks. I see day to day in my job that there's a large turnover in land ownership coming. A lot of younger folks that are buying up property and, you know, a lot of times don't know what to do with it. And I think that's a good avenue for us to reach out to those folks and hopefully provide them with some management advice.
For more information on forest management, consult your local NRCS office, DNR Forestry, Soil and Water Conservation District, or your local forester. These partners are available to help you plan, improve, manage, or protect your property.